What is up, everybody? It is your boy, Pigskin Pete. Happy Tuesday to everybody. The college football world is on fire with the latest news of Oklahoma and Texas leaving the Big 12 and most likely joining the SEC. I've had a few days now to digest this situation, and so now I will give you my thoughts on not only that move, but how it affects the rest of college football right after the bumper. All right, guys, if you're new here, consider hitting the subscribe button. I do these college football videos and live streams year round. There is no off season for Pigskin Pete. So the rumors that Oklahoma and Texas were wanting out of the Big 12, this is not new news. We revisit this every 5 or 10 years. But this time it's actually happening. Now, the timeline on this is completely unknown. They say that they're staying till the end of the contract till 2025. I have a hard time believing that that's going to happen. I know it's a massive, massive payout that both of these teams have to buy their way out of the Big 12 if they want it to happen sooner than 2025. However, I believe that these are two teams that can actually pull it off financially. Hell, we know Texas can. Texas probably has one guy that can write a check tomorrow and make this happen. And if I was a betting man, which I am, I would also bet that Oklahoma could do the same. So my guesstimation is 2023, probably, maybe even sooner. I don't know. But I'm guessing around 2023 is when you will see the Big 12 dissolve. That's right, dissolve. But Pete, just because the two biggest programs in the conference leave doesn't mean the conference is going to dissolve. They could go out and get 4 more teams. Wrong. Not going to happen. This is not a decision that was made 5 days ago or 7 days ago or whatever. This has been in the works for a long time. The SEC is playing chess, and everybody else in the country is playing checkers. There is no doubt in my mind that the SEC has been in communication with both Texas and Oklahoma for several years now, and I guarantee you the SEC has promised Texas and Oklahoma, if they make this power move, that they will be accepted into the conference. And I have no doubt that they will be. Now, the real question is, how does this affect the rest of college football? Personally, I believe what we're going to see is the biggest realignment that we've seen in a very, very long time. And as a fan of a team that's in the ACC, how does this affect the ACC? How does this affect the Big Ten? How does this affect the Pac-12? How does this affect the Group of 5 conferences? How does this affect BYU and Notre Dame? Well, let's start with Notre Dame. Notre Dame loves their independence, and everybody outside of South Bend, Indiana, wants them to join a conference. This man on the screen right here, Jim Phillips, the new ACC commissioner, might just be the guy to make that happen. The former ACC commissioner, John Swofford, allowed Notre Dame to take complete advantage of the ACC for years and years and years. And I don't blame Notre Dame in this situation. I've said this 100 times. I'm not mad at Notre Dame. I'm mad at John Swofford. I'm mad at the ACC. Now, this guy, Jim Phillips, this is his first year on the job, and he's got a hell of a doozy to figure out because of what's going on with Oklahoma and Texas. Now, I like what I've seen so far, and it's been a very, very short sample size from Jim Phillips. He has been quoted as saying he has had several conversations with Notre Dame. His goal is to get Notre Dame to be a full-time ACC member in all sports, not just basketball and baseball, and I don't even know what else they're in, volleyball or whatever, but a football ACC team. Only time will tell whether or not he succeeds in this. I've got his back until he gives me a reason not to have his back. If I were him, I would make a power move. I'd be on the phone with the athletic director for Notre Dame yesterday, today, and tomorrow and put pressure on them based on what's going on in the SEC and the domino effect that's going to have around the country. The ACC needs Notre Dame at this point. Not only do they need Notre Dame, they need to retain the powerhouses in that conference. They need to retain Clemson. They need to retain Florida State. They need to retain Virginia Tech. And I know you're going to, I know I can already see the comment. Virginia Tech ain't no powerhouse, still a big name brand. They need to retain Miami. They need to retain all of these teams because there is talk about Clemson and Florida State in particular from the ACC leaving the conference. All of this talk about the ACC needs to go out and get Cincinnati or UCF or Memphis or App State or Coastal Carolina. This is not a race to 16 or 18 teams. It's not hard to go out and get more teams. What it is hard to do is go out and get quality teams and not just teams that sprung up 2 years ago and might go away in 2 years. Because places like Cincinnati, where Luke Fickell's at, yeah, Cincinnati's been they're a very good Group of 5 program. I have nothing but respect for them. But Luke Fickell walks out the door, that could all change. We don't know. Comparing Cincinnati and UCF to Oklahoma and Texas is ridiculous. Now, there's a million different situations that people are posting on the internet. A million. They all can't happen. They all can't happen. Here's one of two things that has to happen for the ACC. First off, like I said, they need to retain their core teams. They need to retain Clemson. They need to retain Miami. They need to retain Florida State. At this point, they need to retain North Carolina. They need to retain Virginia Tech. Quite frankly, I think they need to retain Boston College, too. I keep hearing rumblings of West Virginia. The ACC needs to get West Virginia. Okay, well, I agree. Unless the ACC is somehow able to snatch up an Oklahoma State or an Iowa State or something like that that's left over from the Big 12, a TCU, hell, any of them. Unless they're able to snatch up some of those stragglers that are left over, then something even more extreme needs to happen. That extreme situation that I'm speaking of would happen to be a merger of some sorts between the ACC and the Big Ten. And when the news first broke about Texas and Oklahoma, that was the first thing that I said, is that one of two things needs to happen. Clemson needs to jump ship out of the ACC and join the SEC or the Big Ten in some way, or you need teams like Michigan and Ohio State or possibly Penn State, Wisconsin, those four teams come to the ACC. And the first thing that happens is homerism takes over. Ohio State fans hate Clemson. Clemson fans hate Ohio State. No, we don't want to be in the same conference as those losers. You need to put your pride aside for a second here. This isn't about hating another team. This is about keeping up with the SEC, because the SEC is becoming a farm league at this point for the NFL, and nobody's going to be able to compete with this. Now, I'm not here to tell you whether this situation is good or bad or ugly or indifferent or any of that. I'm just telling you that it's happening and that these other conferences like the Big Ten, the ACC, and the Pac-12 need to get their head out of their ass, grow some balls, and make some power moves. Otherwise, what you're going to see if they go to a 12-team playoff in a few years is 9 SEC teams and then 3, the best team from the other 3 conferences, and or Notre Dame. And here's the thing about Notre Dame that I don't think has been mentioned yet. At least I haven't seen anybody mention it. The amount of money that these teams are going to be benefiting from creating these quote-unquote super conferences is astronomical. I know Notre Dame values their independence, but this isn't 1990 anymore. It really doesn't even make sense without this happening for Notre Dame to stay independent financially. I mean, I know they're not hurting or anything, but TV contract money for Notre Dame in comparison to a super conference team it's like pennies to Benjamins. It's a massive number. And at the end of the day, I know these Notre Dame fans are all high on their high horse about being independent, but money talks and bullshit walks. If that university can pocket another $30 or $40 million annually as a result of being a part of a super conference, I think that would be the straw that breaks the camel's back. Otherwise, they'll just get left behind. And that notwithstanding any sort of rules as far as making the college football playoff or where you are seated. So the bottom line here is there really is no easy answers. The only thing I do know for certain is that the rest of these conferences outside of the ACC and the Big 12, which will likely go away, need to get their head out of their ass. They need to be on the phone with each other and figure out a way to try to keep up with the SEC, because the SEC is the only conference at this point that seems to have any balls and guts. And as a Clemson guy, I will go ahead and tell you this for sure right now. If the ACC doesn't grow some balls and make some power moves, then I hope that Clemson leaves the ACC. I don't care where they go. Hell, I don't care where they go. They can go independent. They can pull a Notre Dame card out. They could join the Big 10. They could join the Pac-12. I really don't care, but I'm tired. I'm tired of sitting around and watching the ACC bend over for these other teams and other conferences. If you don't keep up, you get left behind. That's it. It's your boy, Pigskin Pete, checking out.